So that's what I'm saying. The text is like an object. It's gonna change perspective based on where you're standing. I don't know.
Hello?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I missed you, baby sweet. It was a day.
It was a day.
Please tell me you're seeing this too.
From Seattle, we're Drinking the Movies. I'm Taylor Baker.
And I'm Michael Clausen. Ready to rock. That's good.
Oh, hi.
Oh, hey, we're drinking a repeat today. What are we drinking?
Triple wheat berry? Triple berry wheat?
One of the two.
Yeah,
Either way, it's delicious.
one of them.
I like it.
Let's just get straight to business since we've already drank this one before. It's still fruity and delicious, like Fruit Loops, but there's movies to watch and trailers I haven't seen yet.
More movies. What do we got?
We got Joker or The Dead Don't Die. What do you want to watch first?
Let's watch The Joker.
Is it just me? Or is it getting crazier out there?
Smile, though your heart is aching. Smile, even though it's breaking. When there are clouds in the sky.
All right, we just watched the trailer for The Joker, starring the one, the only, Joaquin Phoenix. What do you think?
I don't know.
Ooh.
I am incredibly open to this film, and I just don't. I'm very interested. I don't know if I like it, but if I don't like it, I'll still, I think, appreciate that the film exists. I don't know. There's what was that movie we watched last year that has a very long name?
Ooh, I have no.
Statues. It's a Joaquin Phoenix film.
Oh, You Were Never Really Here.
You Were Never Really Here.
Got it.
This reminds me slightly of You Were Never Really Here. And because I did not like that film at all, I might be leaping to conclusions. It's very hard. It's interesting that this is the director of The Hangover.
Right.
I like the cast. I love seeing Brian Tyree Henry and Zazie Beetz. I don't know. I'm enthusiastic that this is made. I just don't know if it is for me. And, that's what it is. How about you?
Yeah. I think I feel the same way. I am most intrigued by the cast. A little nervous that it's directed by the director of The Hangover. I don't remember his name, but that just doesn't give me reason to get excited about what he might do with this kind of material. I don't know. I just got to be open to that, I guess. Just unsure. It's interesting that it looks kind of like a character piece in a way. I am almost wondering, like, will they really be able to, resist going for really big DC moments? I like the idea of this being very character-centric. So, yeah, cautiously optimistic, I guess, but...
Well, you bring up that it's Todd Haynes, or not Todd Haynes, shit, now I forget his name.
The director?
Yeah, but it's Todd something, he's the director of The Hangover. It could be Todd Haynes, I can't remember.
Todd Phillips.
Todd Phillips. And, well, right, we're talking about, like, arguably this generation's greatest comedy trilogy. So that is an interesting tone to actually go for a comedy with the Joker when we are so used to absurd tragedy Joker, kind of in the common dark DC universe. So it is interesting. The one thing that I think of the one thought that I had of an interview with Joaquin Phoenix while watching this, I think it was an interview he did for like Mary Magdalene, when he was talking about previous projects, and the reason that he signed up for her was because he wanted to work on something where he was the center of attention. He loves being the center of attention in artistic pieces where the director is wholly focused on him and helping him bring something to life and have just the whole thing be about him. He's very open that he's kind of egomaniacal like that. And I love that movie, and this seems like a repeat of that egomania, so there is room for this to be wonderful in that way.
Yeah, I also like it when Joaquin Phoenix is the center of attention, so I'm on board with that. If Todd Phillips can just sort of allow him to do what he does and almost kind of like not get out of the way, but just sort of, let him be the source of the appeal. That could work.
Yeah.
So
it could be kind of like The Master. It's hard to tell.
yeah. There you have it.
Let's get on to Jarmusch and some Ghouls.
The dead don't die.
What the hell was it? A wild animal?
This is really awful. Maybe the worst thing I've ever seen.
What was it, wild animals?
So what are you thinking?
I'm thinking zombies.
What?
You know, the undead. Ghouls.
The dead don't die, Michael. What do you think?
I'm very excited. I love Jarmusch. We've talked about a couple Jarmusch movies on the show before. Maybe just one, actually. I think we talked about Only Lovers Left Alive. Mm-hmm. Did we talk about one other? Just that one, I think.
I think we talked about many others when we talked about that one.
I think that's right. I adore Patterson. I like everybody in this movie. I think it looks funny. I think it looks great. What about you?
I agree. I mean, you put Carol Kane in zombie makeup, I'm gonna show up to the movie probably. She's undoubtedly one of the best parts of Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, which is a show of significantly great performances, but Carol Kane is always a standout. She's kind of like Rachel Dratch. Like, every time you see her, you're just like, how is this person not a comedy star? And, Iggy Pop, Adam Driver, Bill Murray, Chloe Sevigny in a good movie. Awesome.
I'm on board. Sold. Yeah, I like his kind of pared down style. It's I wouldn't call it low budget. It's just kind of simple. It's not showy. I just like the kind of everyday, really inviting kind of sensibility. I just love his style.
It is interesting when I think about Jarmusch films. Perhaps they have like a similar patina, all of them. It's like none of them are going to get worse with age, and all of them are always going to kind of hold up in a way because of how simplistic they are, even though they get up to some far-fetched things, or they're just really slow things about a poet driving a bus. They're just gonna, like, I can't imagine in 40 years finding a problem in Patterson or a problem in Only Lovers Left Alive.
Yeah.
So
we're not going to watch.
Exciting.
We're not going to rewatch Patterson and go, oh no, this doesn't work at all.
Exactly.
This doesn't make sense, right? Like, it's just kind of, it has strong defenses against that kind of thing.
Yes.
So yeah, probably very rewatchable.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to our next title here after I get back. I have to go leave. I'll return. You've got 6 months.
Sounds good.
Relax. Breathe in. Relax. Now exhale.
Fuck! Get the bucket! Fuck!
It's Y2K. Your knee bone is exposed. Your flesh is stuck to the seat. And we are talking about Relaxer. You just gonna relax, Michael? You just gonna keep sitting there relaxing with
I'm just gonna relax a little while longer
with your love for this horrendous film?
Whoa!
This piece of trash.
Whoa! Harsh words. I really thought after I saw this first for our listeners. I really thought, I'm like, oh man, this is gonna be totally Taylor's thing. We're gonna laugh. Then I saw that big 1 out of 5. I was like, oh, this conversation is going a different direction.
Hey, I bumped it up to 1.
It was a half.
1. Yep.
Nice. What gave it the extra half star?
I was just thinking about how
anger subsided.
Technically proficient they were with the camera, and how overall decent they were with their makeup.
Gotcha. Yeah.
It's really just like technical reasons why I gave the film a 1 and not a 0.
Fair enough. You saw it at the Grand Illusion. Many people there?
Probably 12.
Oh, okay.
2 people were undoubtedly stoned or tripping because they were laughing the whole time.
In an obnoxious way, I gather.
Obnoxious only to me because I hated the film.
Got it.
But I don't think that it was too obnoxious. Like, they were clearly experiencing joy.
Got it. They were into it.
Yeah.
So I saw it a couple days earlier. I was the only one there, dead at the Grand Illusion, which made me very nervous. I was like, that's just not really how you usually want to experience comedies. You know, you usually hearing
So
laughter.
you think this was a comedy?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I was laughing often and hard throughout this. 100%.
No one but those two people were laughing. In my screening.
I believe it.
So.
I do understand that it is divisive for sure. And
it's macabre.
Agreed. Yeah. And I think I could completely understand the distaste for it. For me, it worked. I really like the frugality of it. I think there's a really massive return on the investment here. I mean, I don't know what the budget is, but like I cannot imagine this costs very much to make. Joshua Burge, the lead actor, I thought it was super funny. I think people might just find him just too annoying, too pathetic. I just find him super funny and sympathetic at the same time.
How is he sympathetic?
Because the whole conceit to me is that he can't get off the couch and he also can't stand up for himself. That's sort of like the running gag here for me. He's, dying to impress his brother. I think this gets at something about, the immaturity of people in, that stupid kind of 90s culture of daring each other to do stuff, which you still get sometimes today. And he, doesn't have the backbone to just call it quits and say this is stupid.
And that's funny to you.
Yeah, it's
okay.
Yeah, of course. It's the absurdity, right? It's the absurd lengths to which the movie goes to show his willingness to not give up. Yeah.
I don't know. I can't get there. Like
Yeah,
I see how
it.
I see how people can get there. It's just I can't stand that character. I mean, he sits on the couch for 6 months without moving.
Correct.
No, I'm never gonna like that character. I think this is just one of those films where it's like it's teed up for me to not be able to get on its wavelength.
That's fair.
At any point.
Not there. I could probably count 5 to 10 lines that had me laughing. The buddy that comes over and they're putting a video in the VCR to watch, some other guy that infamously got to this level in Pac-Man, and he's staring at the static and he goes, "This is actually kind of hypnotic." I thought it was funny, had me laughing. When the pest control guy comes over and is speaking Spanish, and Abby, the guy on the couch says,
is he speaking Spanish or Indian?
Maybe Indian, you're right. Another language, not English. They're not communicating. And he goes, "I'm in a challenge right now. Can you come back tomorrow?" I just thought it was funny. I get that it's crude. People just might find it stupid. I think the immaturity is kind of the point here.
It just drove me insane. It was incredibly abrasive to me. But I definitely... I can even think of a time in my own life where I would have found this to be a comedy. Yeah. So I can't, I'm not holier than thou or anything. It's just like... This is one of those movies where two people can have profoundly different experiences.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I
and
believe
the reviews definitely have reflected that, at least on Letterboxd. There are numerous 2 to 0-star reviews, and not too many reviews in the upper echelon, but enough to go there's a clear split here.
Yeah.
Kind of like Holy Motors, which we'll get to.
Yeah. I completely understand. I think why people wouldn't like it. I found it. I just found it pretty funny. I didn't realize until after I had watched it, when I read just on the Wikipedia page. I don't remember what the source interview was or anything like that. That he was kind of riffing on the Buñuel film, The Exterminating Angel. So I watched that last night, which is, about these...
it's an incredible film, isn't it?
Great movie, yeah. Like these wealthy socialites inexplicably confined to a room. Mm-hmm. They don't know why the situation devolves.
And that is also something that influenced Aronofsky's mother.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I was thinking, oh man, how frustrating Taylor would be if I was like trying to connect the dots between Relaxer and Mother.
You can connect them. It's just one is great and one is terrible.
It's so good.
But there's still definitely common themes and water spurting out, and
Yeah.
The difference though is like one person is a person of or all of the people in Mother are people of action, and Relaxer is a person who's standing up for himself by sitting down, which is just like something
I would not agree with
I find abrasive. You don't agree?
That I would say he is not standing up for himself. Like I think his problem is that he is not standing up for himself in both a physical and metaphorical way. He's being given these stupid challenges, and he should be saying, "No, you're an idiot."
I agree, but okay. So when the brother leaves, right, the last thing that he says is, "I quitting." Right, and then we never see him cheat again. Before that point, we were seeing him cheat, and then he stops cheating. He stays sitting there the whole time until the brother gets back. And to me, that's like when he started standing up for himself, quote unquote. Like it was a slow build to him finally standing up, putting on the sunglasses, and blowing his brother up.
Got it. Yeah.
That's at least how I saw it.
Yeah. Different interpretation. I could see that. But the performance itself, it just didn't do anything for you, huh?
It exhausted me, made me weary, and honestly, I never wanted a movie to end already as much as when I was watching this movie. I fucking hated this movie.
Wow.
But I'm like, now that I've sat through it, I'm oddly glad that I did, because it's just there is something about having like your worst experiences in cinema that make your best experiences better, I guess. So like it at least serves that value. Let's at least try to talk about something before we move on, like about the film, other than how much I hate it. The ending. What do you think about the like the way that he beats it and then it projects out of the TV and like destroys the world?
Yeah, it's kind of this transcendent moment brought on by achieving the mythic level 257, 258, something like that. I don't know that I've really extracted any like metaphorical value from that. I actually think some of the more surreal things, like the mind control and that kind of thing, weren't as effective for me. I didn't hate them, but I don't know that I had like a real response to it. What
mind
about you?
Control?
Whatever you want to call it, when he's putting on the sunglasses, and he's, for example, staring down his brother until he blows up.
Yeah, that's like the one time it happens, right? Because then the other time the cup moves and it's cockroaches.
Right. I should say attempted
mind
control,
I guess
perhaps.
so there was one other time where the woman came in to help him and gave him the note that ultimately unlocks it, and he was like giving the person like heart palpitations or something, the boyfriend that came up the stairs. So I guess there were technically 2 times, and 3 times he tried.
Yeah.
I don't know what to make out of it. It's just I don't know. To me, it's completely empty and devoid of meaning in a way that none of these other films are.
Yeah, I did not experience that. I think it gets something right about the time period. I think it utilizes its one particular place in a very tactile way. I think there's a very tangible sense of place, particularly because of how it's shot and how that camera moves and remains fixed between him and the TV. I think it gets something right about immaturity. And
were you never bothered by the fact that it's a wireless camera that's been working for 6 months?
No, not at all. This is not realism.
Yeah, I know. It's just yeah.
Yeah,
there's something real about the exterminating angel, though. Like even though
I disagree. That's like the most surreal movie ever made.
Right, even though it's totally unreal. Like when they're in the walls of the building. The rules apply to everything besides like manifestations of the metaphysical. And I never felt like the camera was a manifestation of something metaphysical, the way that like a hand going across the floor is, or like bears just showing up.
Yeah. Understood.
I guess so, like I don't know that it has a coherent tone, is maybe what I'm trying to say.
I would disagree. I think it is a very consistent and idiosyncratic tone that is sort of like serio-comic. The way it's sort of just like pathetic to watch him sit there, and also funny to see him try to survive. I would say it's very, to me it feels very distinctive. In how it has both pathos distinct and comedy.
So you think as a project it's distinct, or you think that it has a distinct theme?
Both, 100%.
Oh, okay.
We're struggling with the middle ground.
We are on opposite sides of the Mississippi River, and there are no sandbars. We need to go further south in order to find a place to cross.
Hi, Taylor.
Oh, hi, Michael. I'm going to disagree with you about Relaxer just forever, but that's okay. I dare you to watch this film with Gabby.
No, this is the thing. This movie has taught me that I can say no. I refuse that challenge.
He's standing up for himself, people.
But I'm still on the couch.
I'm just gonna relax just a little bit longer.
That's Relaxer. Moving on.
I'm supposed to act like they aren't here, assuming there's a they at all. It may just be my imagination. Whatever it is that's watching, it's not human.
You show what we regard more as competition phenomenon. Competition between the left and the right hemispheres of your brain. It's like you have two signals that interfere with each other by carrying conflicting information.
Two hemispheres of my brain are competing?
Yes.
What does a scanner see? Into the head? Down into the heart? Does it see into me? Into us? Clearly or darkly?
This is a much better, much more artistic film that you did not like as much as you liked Relaxer. This is A Scanner Darkly from Richard Linklater, the creator of the Before trilogy, and one of the most seminal films of our time, Boyhood.
Both show. One of my favorite directors, for sure. This has been a blind spot for me for a long time, even though I'd always considered Linklater one of my favorites. Just never got around to seeing this one. I did have to watch it over 2 days. That did not help. That always detracts, from an experience for me. So, very open about that. And it has definitely lingered with me, and I think improved just the more I've sat with it. And it's one that I think I find more compelling in hindsight than in the moment. But
it is kind of I don't know if this is the right word, but almost narcotic when you're watching it. Like you're so overwhelmed with the animation style and trying to keep track of like who's even in the frame and what's happening that you don't get to reflect on the experience until it's kind of over.
Yeah.
And if you start reflecting halfway through, that might change the feeling of the film.
Yeah.
In a significant way.
Yeah, I would agree. Things I liked, things I didn't like. It's always difficult to kind of to try and weigh those. The animation itself, I mostly liked quite a bit. I gather that many people just adore it. I don't know that I'm one of those people. I really like it, but it wasn't kind of transcendent for me, animation-wise. What about you?
I think it's one of the most interesting adaptations of a novel that I've ever seen. I've personally never read Philip K. Dick's A Scanner Darkly, but the person I watched it with has read it, I think, more than once. And he said specifically that he didn't remember that the suits were actually a part of Scanner Darkly. And I thought that was, if that's true, that's just an amazing flourish by Linklater as a director to find a way to visualize what that scrambling thing would be in the visual medium instead of the narrative medium.
Yeah.
And just the way that he captured those performances and then layered on top of it. Like when I think about more recent entries trying to do this type of animation style, Loving Vincent, it's like, this is incredible. Like it is just a truly incredible interpretation of a piece. I think that he does a very good job of not being upfront with some of the narrative stuff that's playing in the background. Like if you remember some of the doctors, they would appear differently at different times. So they're clearly wearing suits that are projecting single images.
The ones that Keanu Reeves is going to see?
Yes. They are like, he will look away and then he'll look back and they'll be different people.
Got it.
And they'll still have the same voice. And they... Right, the first thing that they tell him is to get a blue flower, or when he asks them about how to woo Winona Ryder, who is playing a character for him, to try to take down this thing that's killing all these people. They say, bring her a blue flower, and then we never really see that thread come together. And the way that pays off, just the way that is silent foreshadowing, the story continues. Kind of fast and loose. It almost reminded me of Destroyer, just how it's just going fast and loose with the narrative line of him being a cop trying to figure out what exactly is going on in this scenario, and then the way that comes back at the end, kind of like how Destroyer comes back at the end, I thought was just really sharp.
Yeah.
As narrative.
Yeah. Like in the days after. That's when I think the content really kind of started to resonate with me. And in the moment, I would kind of think to myself, wow, some of this is really striking to look at. For me, it's actually a great film to bring up, Loving Vincent, because I think I had the same kind of problem here that I had with Loving Vincent, which was that even as I kind of liked the surface of the form, for me, it in a way was sort of a barrier for me to actually get into the characterizations. Individually, I like some of these characters, but there were scenes where they're interacting with each other where, like, I just felt like something wasn't quite right. There was something kind of inorganic or constructed about, like, how these group of friends were relating to each other.
I would agree, but my personal interpretation of that was applying the rules of the world, not the rules of the animation being visually depicted. Like, these are all drug addicts, all on something that is evil. And they're clearly going down these really negative rabbit holes. And there is a point, for me at least, in the film where it's been so long that I didn't really remember whether or not Keanu Reeves is good or bad. And where I, like, almost became sympathetic to Robert Downey Jr.
I do. Yeah, and I do think that's something that sort of revealed itself to me after the fact, is sort of how your sympathy kind of evolves, I guess. Not in like a radical way, but in a very nice sort of subtle way, I guess.
Do you think at all that you know how he's wearing the suit and it's changing all these things? Do you think that this might be reaching, and I might be totally wrong, that the film might do something like that, where, like, you think that it's this thing that you're looking at, then you think it's this other thing that you're looking at, and it keeps kind of shifting, and then they're on the highway and the car gives out, and you think that, like, someone's doing something nefarious to kill all of them, and like it just keeps kind of changing shapes and morphing on you, and then at the end you kind of have a whole idea of what this thing's shape is, but you don't really know what it truly looks like.
It's a very interesting idea. I don't know that I am at a place where I could articulate, like, what those different shapes kind of look like and mean to me, but I do think, like, that makes a lot of sense. I could very much see that experience, for sure. And I do think that particular detail looks pretty great. The shape-shifting cop suits. It's just striking on the eye. Robert Downey Jr., probably who I most sort of responded to.
He's full body acting. It's
he
pretty
really
great.
is. He really is. And that's why like rating is weird, because I can think of scenes where I really liked what he was doing, like
Gesticulating.
when he comes in with the bike.
Total providence. Look, what I obtained for a mere $50.
What is it?
Oh, this would be an 18-speed bike of the all-terrain variety.
Why do you say it's an 18-speed when it only has 9 gears?
Okay, those guys told me it was 18 speeds. I just got Greek.
Let's just go rescue the orphan gears, dude!
And actually, I'm calling him out, but I actually thought Woody Harrelson was super funny too.
Hilarious, yeah.
Yeah, I really like what they're doing in that scene, and then like Keanu Reeves and Winona Ryder are kind of in the other corner of the room, and Woody and Robert Downey Jr. are talking about the bike, and I don't know, something about that scene, like it just, something was kind of missing about like the organic kind of quality of these four people hanging out.
I agree, but to me that was kind of showing the narrative seams of like how these people are trying to manufacture this relationship in order to like achieve something. Like it isn't organic. Winona does not belong there. She's not having a real romantic relationship with Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves doesn't really belong there. He's a cop undercover who's taking these pills because he thinks that is what they asked him to do for his job. And then there's these two tweakers that are also in the room, while these two cops think that they're on the job, impersonating being on the job. Like, to me, it's kind of like those Destroyer scenes where Nicole Kidman and Sebastian Stan are sharing those eye glances. And, like, although that scene feels very real, that shared glance totally breaks the framing of the scene and makes it something different. And I think that while this style is completely different than that Destroyer style, kind of what's happening in that room might be the same thing, of breaking the film in the way that we're looking at it.
Yeah, that could be. Maybe I just have to come at that kind of scene from a different angle. You know, sometimes you find your way in. It's maybe not the most productive way.
Or maybe you're right and I'm wrong. I don't know. This is just me spitballing.
Yeah.
I really like this movie.
Yeah. I really liked how it ended. I actually thought the ending was very sort of devastating, moving for me, and that played a huge role in it sticking with me, I think, in the coming days. The idea of Keanu Reeves just still out there in that field with the blue flower in his shoe, that's a resonant. Yeah, that's a resonant image for sure, or idea.
Like, I still don't know what to do with it. I just know that it blows my mind that, like, we saw the flowers and then we stopped seeing the flowers. And I'm just like, how much else didn't I see in the movie because he's not seeing what they don't want him to see?
Yeah.
And like, we're only seeing what they want us to see. Like, those ideas make that animation style so much richer for me, because I question what exactly I was allowed to see. Like, I was shown things that didn't exist when Rory McCrane, I can't remember his name, is tripping in the beginning, right? We see like the cockroaches and he puts the bugs in the jar, and like the things that were shown are the things are maybe not the real things that are there. And it definitely makes me like interested in reading the book and like going back and revisiting the film and making comparisons. I think that, like, just as a flat statement, this is regardless of whether or not it's a 3.5 or a 5 or whatever for review, it is one of the most exciting adaptations of a novel to a separate form of art. Like, whether or not you're going to make a painting dedicated to a book or a film or a cartoon or a live action animated film, I do think that this is a very, very exciting adaptation.
Yeah. And it makes you want to read the book.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I haven't read... Have you read any of his other books?
Yeah, the Electric Sheep one I definitely read. And then, my buddies always had, like, the complete collection. I think I've probably gone through 6 of them. They're all
Yeah.
pretty small books.
Yeah.
Philip K. Dick really busted out the novels for the paychecks, I think.
Yeah. Philip K. Dick is really one I'm only familiar with through cinema, just having never read his stuff. So I can, only imagine if you're more familiar with that source material, you can better appreciate, what Linklater is doing with it.
Yeah, it becomes richer. Kind of like having watched Buñuel and then reflecting on Relaxer or Mother.
Yeah, or Beale Street. We love Beale Street. It was particularly resonant for me afterwards, just thinking about like where the opioid crisis is now. And even like this week reading about like Purdue Pharma, and the revelations about them, seeking to open treatment centers after, allegedly, or more than allegedly, having played a huge role in sparking this crisis in the first place. I do think I'm like, wow, like there is something really special when a movie just seems to like intersect with your ingestion of current events that can just be really meaningful, and I think that definitely happened for me here.
And it speaks to Philip K. Dick as a voice, as a science fiction voice that kind of saw how systems interact and how certain things seem to be eternal.
Yeah. So, do you find the ending bleak or hopeful? I was just gonna say.
I always lean hopeful. Yeah.
Can't help it. You're like, there's gotta be some hope here.
I'm always gonna root for Winona Ryder and Keanu Reeves. It's just never gonna not be.
How do you not root for them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is our favorite couple as a show.
Yeah. I think I agree. It's like there is a glimmer of hope. It is not
because he puts the flower in his boot, and we know that he's going to see her on Thanksgiving, and that's the evidence that they need.
Yeah. Well, I guess for me it was I guess it was just the question as if he was still like lucid enough to sort of know that he had.
I don't think he knows what he's doing.
Okay, but you think he's going to stumble into it?
I think that the psychologist had prepped him to stumble into solving it.
Got it.
And then, if Winona Ryder truly does love him, then hopefully everything will be fine.
Yeah.
And to quote her in a recent interview, in her mind, they're still married.
Yeah. I do like an ending that allows you to just sort of like project the next few steps in the process, which I think this very much does well.
It's a lot less bleak than Relaxer.
It is. Yeah, I think so. I'm glad we watched it.
I am too. On to The Beach Bum.
Give me a Lucky Lotto and a cigar, would you? Sure. You don't sell acid, do you? No. That's too bad, man. I write poetry. I like that fun, man.
Moondog. We're talking about The Beach Bum. Harmony Korine's latest, starring Matthew McConaughey, Isla Fisher, Snoop Dogg.
Doggy Dog. Snoop
Martin
Lion.
Lawrence. Snoop Lion, you're right. That is his. Does he still go by Snoop Lion? Or has he changed it since then? I don't know. Who's up to date on their Snoop Dogg?
I know he's still smoking weed.
Pseudonyms.
I can guarantee that.
Right into the show. If we're wrong, correct us. What do you think?
I am mixed on this movie as far as ratings go, which is exactly how I've been with the only other Harmony Korine film I've seen, which is Spring Breakers. However, a while ago we talked about if Letterboxd had sizes of hearts, and if this could just be rated from my heart, it would be the biggest heart I could give it. Like, I really do love this movie. I don't quite know what I critically, quote unquote, think about it. It's definitely tough, and I don't know that Harmony Korine is necessarily someone I want to think about the things he's doing too much, because then it might take away some of the mystique and the joy that I get with the heart. There are some specific things, like what Moondog does with his glasses, the tears throughout the film that Moondog has, because there are certain times where he flips his glasses up, and we haven't seen him put eye drops in, and he's crying, and then he puts eye drops in. And I don't know if that's like because he's high or because of the pain that he's getting high to hide from. Like there's a lot, I think, to chew on. It's just I don't know how to chew on it, and I don't know if I want to.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you think that's interesting. You saw that there was potentially this reserve of pain that he was perhaps
that
shielding himself from. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I guess I saw him just from a different angle as just too intoxicated by the appeal of all of these sensual pleasures.
So maybe it's too beautiful. Maybe life is too beautiful, and that's why he's crying. That's the thing. I don't quite know what to make of his tears.
Yeah. And I think I like that he's not an easy character to pick apart. I think, or at least I felt that way.
No, I definitely agree. Right, his daughter says he's a genius and completely unreliable, unlike you.
Yeah.
To her husband at the time.
Yeah, it did make me wish I had seen Spring Breakers a little more recently, just because of how much it felt like sort of a companion to it, particularly in the style with some of the really vivid color. It just feels like a continuation of Corrien's interest in just debauchery and people's sort of the lure of decadence and these kinds of very earthly pleasures. And I think I like that I don't really feel him critiquing this character. I mean, I think he sort of allows me the space to judge, and he's really just kind of putting me in Moondog's headspace and allowing me to sort of see life the way he does.
Did you ever come to a judgment with Moondog?
I do want Moondog to change his ways. I do. Yes. Okay. So I do have a judgment in a sense. Yeah.
When I have to look at Moondog when I'm watching this film, I agree with that statement. But when I don't have to look at him, there is something that I find nice about the idea of someone like that in the world. Like just smoking weed, getting on a jet, flying away, burning all the money that he gets, just for a laugh. Like I like that level of chaos in the world that is non-malicious. Like I do find that there's a weird value to it.
Yeah, I would agree up until the point that there is consequence, and that's what just makes the movie interesting.
But that's the thing. Like, was there ever That's what I don't know, I guess. Like, let me ask you: do you think there is consequences to his actions, or do you think that there's consequences to the people's actions that choose to hang out with him?
I do pin the we're talking spoilers here, correct? We always talk about spoilers.
No doubt.
Yeah. I do pin his wife's death primarily on him, more so than her for being in the car.
But she was driving.
Less so? Was she driving?
She was driving.
Yeah, I don't...
She drove to the bar to pick him up, wasted.
And then
got wasted at the bar with him. And then said we should go for a drive. So she instigated it. And then they were in the car.
Yeah.
And she was driving.
Yeah,
and that's the thing, like, because I agree, like, I want to blame him. But I don't... I think that might be, like, a shallow desire of mine to want to blame him. And maybe all these other people that are choosing to interact with him, and, like, the fact that she chose to get married to him. And stay married to him. Like, how culpable is she? Because she was clearly more sound of mind.
Yeah, I mean, I guess then I find them sort of equally responsible. I don't know. I have trouble sort of just letting him off the hook, even if she was, also quite wasted. I think the evidence is mounting that his carefree sensibility does not really allow him to put his best foot forward. I don't think the movie really suggests he exercises great judgment.
I agree, but you said so. I mostly agree. You said that you don't think that the way he behaves allows him to put his best foot forward. I don't know, because like his artistic genius might be because he's so fucked up. You know, like,
well, I think that's
weird. Like, is that putting his best foot forward? Is creating beautiful art putting your best foot forward or not?
Well, I think that's the other thing, is that I think it does hinge on whether or not you think his output is beautiful or not. I think I'm on the fence about it. It sounds like you're more convinced.
I'm definitely on the fence about it, but I think that it is beautiful enough that it deserves to, like, it belongs in the world. It has a place to belong in the world, and the world would be poor if it wasn't in the world. And I think that us as a society are at our weakest point to judge poetry than we've ever been in the historical past. So I really think that it's multifaceted in its interest.
Yeah. I feel like I'll read a stat every now and then about how there's like more poetry being created now than ever before, and fewer people reading it than ever.
Yeah. Like if you named a modern poet that wasn't Anne Carson, I probably wouldn't know who it is.
Yeah. I was thinking to myself, like, if I were to like pair this with other movies, what would I pair it with? I was like, it's kind of funny to just in my head compare Moondog to Patterson as a poet, a fellow cinematic poet. I also kind of think about some of Sofia Coppola's movies, like The Bling Ring and Marie Antoinette, and just sort of the depiction of wealth. Yeah, exactly. And the very strong
streaming down their faces,
very strong appeal of it, and how just easy it is to kind of succumb to that. Moondog married into it, and he had no problem adjusting. It was just fine.
How do you feel about a hard right turn in this conversation?
What you got?
I have some wandering thoughts, and I figure suss them out with you.
What you got?
So I talk about Jeff Nichols in Americana quite often, and the unique patina he brings to films, and you often agree, or at least it enriches the conversation. What do you think about Harmony Korine maybe also creating Americana, but instead of the type that we're used to with the Midwest Jeff Nichols Americana, maybe he's interrogating like the state of Florida a little bit more with his films? Does that hold any water for you, or is it sinking like the Florida state?
Yeah, maybe it's like Florida like as a destination for decadence, right?
Well, I mean, also they have the highest opioid addictions per capita, if I remember, or the highest subscriptions or prescriptions handed out as well. Like they were running farms, opioid farms in Florida for a long time. They have the stand your ground law, which lets them get away with murder if someone's on your property. Florida as a state has a very storied history of being like one of the most fucked up and decadent states.
Yeah,
and I believe that that's where Spring Breakers takes place, as well as this film.
Yeah, I think that's
so right. I do question if there is any level to like a philosophical interrogation of what the state of Florida is exactly.
That's
in
interesting.
his films.
Yeah,
the way that we talk about Nichols bringing the Midwest to life with mud and such.
Yeah. I mean, I think these two movies together certainly comprise a certain vision of Florida as a site for indulgence.
But like, think about the Florida Project, right?
Yeah.
It depicts the third world country portion of the Florida area because these super luxuriant places exist. There are these places where it's almost like you're living an insect's life around these great decadent areas.
Yeah. I remember this was a weird instance of a distributor trying to curate, but I think it was after Moonlight came out that A24 said that the Florida trilogy is now complete between Moonlight, the Florida Project, and Spring Breakers.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Which I thought was kind of cool. Like, you don't hear a distributor or a studio
Moonlight,
trying to do
for
that.
example. Yeah, that's another great example, right?
Yeah. Very, very different side of it, for sure. Which I think is interesting. It's a pretty different place to live if you're a black gay kid versus a wealthy teenage girl on spring break.
But there's also an intersection of James Franco, Moondog, and Chai. Or not Chai. Is that his name?
In Moonlight?
Yeah.
Little. Well, his name kind of changes, but yeah. I do think all those movies kind of nicely speak to each other in terms of their sense of place, like, for sure.
So do you think that there, even if it isn't like on purpose, do you think there is like a conversation almost happening about like Florida as a state, perhaps?
Yeah, totally. Okay. I could see that. Yeah, 100%.
Especially like white Florida, not to get like racist with it, but like white rich Florida is definitely different than poor white Florida in the Florida Project, and definitely different than any version of Black Florida that we're shown in Moonlight.
Yeah, some pretty radical divisions between experiences.
And then, like, think back to Scarface, which takes place in Florida, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, I do think that there might be a very interesting story in film throughout time about this fucking weird state. Kind of like how Texas has all these really cool, unique films that kind of bring it to life. Whether you want to go to like Hell or High Water, something more contemporary, or go back to like The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. There is something about like the mysteriousness of wealth that this state is obsessed with.
Yeah.
And its racial divides.
Yeah. One thing that I always really loved in the Florida Project was the helicopters that you see in the background.
Yeah.
Landing and going. You see it as a destination that people come to, but then get out, and then they go back home, wherever they live. The contrast between the people who go there to party and the people who live there can be pretty striking. And I think, they all kind of add up to a composite of sorts, for sure. I think the Beach Bum in particular, I think I did overall like. It's just one that I never felt myself respond to quite strongly enough to love it, but I just found it,
when you say
throughout.
Love it, you mean rating, or you mean heart, or you mean both?
Just as one that I think I really, that I really connected with in a meaningful way. It's kind of what ratings are for me.
I don't know if I agree. Like, I don't think that you can really connect, because every time you try to connect to this guy, he's so fucking high and out of it and making these fucking terrible choices that I fundamentally hate him as a person.
Yeah.
But I also love the film and its characters in a really odd way, where it's like I have to separate the way that I like this film or care about this film from the way that I watched it. Like, I did not necessarily always enjoy watching it. Yeah. And I don't know that any level of the craft was really that great, but I also don't know if it was that bad, or like if it was abrasive. Like, it's a weird interaction, and that's why I'm glad it exists, but I don't know how to rate it.
Yeah. For me, I think he sort of succeeded in getting me into Moondog's headspace. I just don't know that I found ultimately that much value in that experience to really kind of get me up into those upper echelons of ratings. But I am glad I experienced it nonetheless.
I guess it won't be out in theaters yet, but I was going to say, while this is still fresh in your mind, I wish that you could watch Her Smell, because you'll have a very similar interaction with a creative person who is incredibly abrasive, like Moondog.
Thought you were going to say it's set in Florida.
No, it ought to be. You could pretend that they're on tour in Florida in some of the cuts.
Yeah, interesting. It's an interesting movie.
I am very glad we watched it and talked about it, but I still don't know what I think about it, and that is maybe why I lean towards it being good rather than bad.
There you go. I'm on board with that.
On dit qu'elle est dans l'œil de celui qui regarde.
Alors si personne ne regarde plus.
Who were we when we were who we were back then?
Holy Motors. do we have a movie to talk about?
Whoa, we sure do. I don't know how to pronounce this director's name. Do you?
I do not recall this director's name, so that's going to be a hard no.
First name is
I don't even remember the name of the actor, and I looked it up this morning.
There you go. It's Leo with an S. I don't know how you pronounce that.
Leosh. Maybe?
Leosh? And then the last name is C-A-R-A-X.
C-A-R-A-X? Karach?
Karach? Leosh Karach?
Yeah.
We're going with that.
Okay.
All right.
It's that or Leos Karak.
It is something like
to
that.
Say.
This is fresh for you. This is day of recording.
This is day of recording. I squeezed it in this morning.
There you go. Well caffeinated.
Extremely well caffeinated, although I am still tired. I have a love for performance, and this is definitely assembling my love of performance into a streamlined vehicle. Pun intended. And I just generally enjoyed almost everything that I interacted with. And what I didn't enjoy, I find particularly fascinating. So overall, I'm super high on this film. How about you?
There you go. I enjoyed most of it. It took me a little while until I started sort of finding my own ideas in it. At first, I was just sort of enjoying its kind of idiosyncrasy. Is that a word? Idiosyncrasies.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until a particular point where he starts, where our main character says some things that made me start thinking about this as sort of just an allegory or metaphor for filmmaking or cinema itself. And that was the main sort of idea that I was getting from it. Some of the material here sort of lined up with what I was thinking. Some of it did not. Some of it I found more compelling than not, or than others. So it was maybe just a little uneven for me, but overall positive for sure. You mentioned the main guy, whose name we don't remember. I agree. I do like him. I think he kind of carries the thing.
Yeah.
He's really in every
it's
single
like
scene,
saying Scarlett Johansson really carries Under the Skin. Like, duh, that's the only thing.
Yeah. He's literally in every frame, I think.
Except the end.
Yeah, you're right. When we have some limos chatting with each other. But yeah, you mentioned a couple other movies that you thought that came to mind.
My movie math in my review?
Yeah. One I knew, one I didn't. I think Cosmopolis was the one I knew. The other one I don't remember.
So my movie math, to explain this to people that haven't seen this film and might want to see this film, is if you take The Dresser, which had a recent it's a play. It's a famous play. But its recent adaptation was, if I remember correctly, Anthony Hopkins and Sir Ian McKellen. Or it was Patrick Stewart and Sir Ian McKellen. I can't remember which duo it was. But if you take that film and you pair it with Cosmopolis, and then you add Under the Skin, you get Holy Motors.
There you go.
It is very much all of those three films. Because The Dresser is about... It's instead of the play, it's about getting ready for the play and the interactions in the hallways behind the scenes. And that is very much what's happening in this limo. And that is also the subject of Cosmopolis, Robert Pattinson conducting business from a limo, and kind of the world coming to him. And that is very much what is happening in this film. Like, the world is very much coming to him in these appointments, and then he's getting out of the limo to go do these objectives and then getting back in.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And when the appointment ends, you will leave.
That's right. Yeah, I have not seen Cosmopolis, but I'm familiar with Cronenberg, and some of the more like physically kind of striking stuff here felt Cronenbergian to me. I suppose I could see that for sure. And definitely under the skin in terms of just exactly what you said, the way a lead performance is really carrying this through in sort of this shape-shifting way. You could
I was
probably
actually
add
thinking
more
like,
than me, but
rather than under the skin, it might be on the skin.
Ooh, I like that.
Because I think Under the Skin is very much about like what we're projecting into this character. And I think that this film is very much the opposite. It's more on the skin. Like, what are we feeling when we're watching these scenes? Like, how does it make us feel, rather than using our frontal lobe and trying to like think about like what's going on in the scene. I think it's a lot more useful to think about how you can let yourself feel from watching these characters interact with each other and letting the scene play out and really attempting to feel it rather than just focus on how you're thinking about it.
Yeah. I hear people describe David Lynch in the same way, that he's working a little bit more with the subconscious than the conscious, and just through some of his striking imagery, he strikes a chord that you didn't even realize was really kind of inside you, and you kind of have to figure out what it was that just what it is that just hit you, and you kind of figure it out later. Yeah, you tell me, like, did the filmmaking metaphor, was that just me, or were you gathering that too?
The filmmaking metaphor is there. I did some reading beforehand about how every single critic, when this film came out, thought that it was amazing because of its criticism of the filmmaking medium. And I made a harsh decision. I made a firm decision to not let that be my frame of mind. Because I was like, okay, so if that's what everyone thinks, I don't want to think what everyone thinks. I want to try to unlock something else new that maybe other people weren't interacting with. And so I focused more on performance and just how there's these similarities in storytelling, right? Like there's this point in time where these two limos come together and start honking. And then all of a sudden it turns into there is a film, Blue Jay. It turns into a mini-sode of Blue Jay with Sarah Paulson and Mark Duplass, where it's these two people that were in love for this point in time, sharing this 20 minutes together, walking hand in hand, not really talking before they have to get back to their appointments and their normal lives.
And they sing instead of talk.
Yes. And there is something so shatteringly beautiful about that storytelling element of two things coming together in almost a collision and like this fuss being made, and then two people kind of walking off and having this interaction together before returning to reality. And then the stark reality of how we physically see that portrayed, of course, is going to bring us back to film or the visual medium at some level, right? Because once he descends those stairs, she becomes dead to him. And then we're just seeing some sort of a visual manifestation of what's going through his head emotionally happen on the screen. And when he walks outside, she has killed herself with her current husband or boyfriend, and he begins to openly weep and kind of what's the term for hyperventilating. He starts hyperventilating and kind of runs like a child towards the door and closes it because he can't handle the emotions. And I think that that's something that might not be real if you just try to feel the film. Like because the film is a film, it has to visually show us what happens emotionally to make us feel that, but that might not be what really happened. That just might be how he's feeling.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think you connected with him more strongly than I did, and I don't know that that's really like a criticism I have of it. That was just my own experience. Like I really kind of wanted to more than I did. I think I probably attached to one idea a little earlier than I should have, and then was like a little like in one lane that I needed to kind of break free from. It was probably during the motion capture scene that I was like, okay, like, are we kind of doing like the things involved in movie making? Is that what each of these appointments are? So then I was like, motion capture.
That's what's interesting to me. Like you are kind of maybe because you interact with film as an art, I would say, not disparagingly to you, but almost exclusively in your interactions with art, like between music and anything else. It's like music's probably number one for you, and then number two is movies, right? Just as far as what you were interacting with most. Whereas, if you were playing more video games, you might be thinking motion capture video games. Like you might be
what it is,
adding in other art genres.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so my own sort of reading was sort of immediately undercut once I saw that that's what it looked like. It was creatures. A video game. Yeah, I was like, oh, okay. The hobo scene, which is the very first appointment, kind of like, I'm like, is this like film financing? Is he trying to get the money to make the project?
Oh, interesting. Okay.
That's what I thought.
I haven't really come up with that yet.
Yeah.
To me, that's like I don't know. I started from very much like a Scrooge place. Like, look, it's just classic Dickens more than anything to me. Like, I was just trying to think more stories, not like film objectives.
Yeah.
Metaphorically. Because it is all these stories together. And while it's almost certainly true that this is all about film, because that's what all critics seem to agree on, I just wanted to try to reach for something different.
Yeah, and I would hope that there is more than just that. The scene in the graveyard where he's sort of embodying like a
zombie almost.
Yeah, a zombie hobo, I guess. I don't know what you would call him.
But like eating,
he looks homeless.
He's almost just consuming love and greed, and it's a very interesting character because as it continues, right, the final thing he ingests is Eva Mendes's hair after he ingests her cash, and it's just such a visually rich metaphor going on with that character. I don't quite know what to make of it.
Yeah.
Other than it's a monster that consumes everything beautiful around it, I guess. Or everything that can acquire beauty, even.
Yeah.
Right? Because he doesn't eat her hair when the wig is on. And then once the wig comes off, you're like, Jesus Christ, her hair looks even better now. And he just starts eating and rips it off of her. Very and it's just it's an incredible scene. And Eva Mendes throughout, her face is just very... It really reminds me of her role in Ryan Gosling's directorial debut, Lost River. Like, it's just this really rich metaphorical role where she's kind of... You can't really unlock her, but you know that she plays like the symbolic value very deeply.
Yeah. Kind of like the motion capture, where I kind of had an idea that I then went back on once I saw that it was a video game. The graveyard scene I kind of thought felt like film marketing or film PR with the photo shoot, and he's like, oh yeah, I can sell this. You know, this is weird, this is gross, let me get this. And then they go down to what you were just describing. They're underground, right? In the graveyard. And I was like, oh, I don't know what to do with this.
Well, he starts by going in the sewers.
Sewers, you're right.
And then he emerges into the graveyard from the sewer.
You're right.
And then goes back into the sewer with Eva Mendes on his shoulder.
Yeah. Intriguing for sure, but I didn't know what to do with what I was watching.
Yeah. But
that's
there's
why,
these small motifs, right?
That's
like
fine.
She loses her high heel, and that all of a sudden Cinderella.
Oh, that's
like
nice.
there's, and it's on the stairs specifically. Like there's all these little things that are similar tie-ins to other films that we've seen throughout this whole thing, and then there's similarities within it, right? Like in the motion capture scene when they're having the animated sex, when he's specifically interacting with that female contortionist, I would assume that that's what she is, in basically bondage gear. Each of them are
ghillie suits.
He begins licking her vagina on the outside of the suit.
Correct.
And then after he bites off the girl's fingers and there's blood in his mouth, he licks Eva Mendes's armpit. So there is this weird symbiosis happening in this film of building up meanings, and I don't exactly know what they are, but I think that they're there.
You just feel them
to be felt. Yeah, exactly. To be felt on the skin, not under it.
Yeah. Much better to feel first and figure it out later rather than to feel nothing.
I definitely was not trying to figure out what I was watching. I was just trying to feel it.
Just let it wash over you first.
Yeah, because it's as I was pouring through reviews that were non-spoilery before I watched it, it was just like everyone had this take that it was accomplishing these goals in this way, and I was like, isn't that always what we don't want a film to do? Like, we don't want it to just tell us something, we want it to also be felt.
Yeah, and usually want, at least, or I usually want at least as many questions as answers. That's, if you give me too many answers, you're just giving me reasons to forget about the movie, like case closed. This has left me with plenty to ponder, for sure. Just like you said, with the scene where they the man and the woman, there is something emotional to it.
But also
sure.
like similar to something I've seen before.
Just it feels like familiar. You mean?
Yeah. And I think that's where like its filmmaking medium comes out, where it's like this is definitely about film because it's all these things that I feel like I've seen before. And even within the context of the film, like I brought up the armpit and the vagina, but also the motion capture lights. There's a point near the end of the film where he's in the limo again, I believe, and there's all these lights that are on the window that look just like the motion capture lights.
Ooh, nice.
And you're kind of like, oh, is he like creating something different than reality here? Like, is he creating something emotionally between these two characters? And I think that it's right before he begins talking to his driver intimately that this scene with the window lights happens, and it's like he's creating something separate from what he is responsible for. Maybe that's like the metaphor emotionally. It's tough. This is such a emotionally rich film because it is so performance dense.
Opening scene, did you get much out of that?
What is the opening again?
The opening is, I think it's a different guy, right?
Yeah.
He looks different to me.
If I remember correctly, that's like the director.
He looks like the director. Yeah, I wasn't sure.
The director gets in the vehicle and then becomes an actor, and then the actor gets out of the vehicle and begins performing.
Yeah, I guess that's right. I guess I kind of forgot how the opening scene ended. Yeah. He goes out of like a hotel room, through a wall, into the theater, and then we switch into the limo mode.
Yeah, breaking through a wall to... it's great.
Just good stuff. Yeah, I did...
Thank you for reminding me. I totally forgot.
Opening scenes can just suck you in right away. You're like, I was on board with... Even as I didn't have an idea right off the way.
The middle finger as a key.
Oh, yeah.
I was just
nice
like...
touch.
This is Pan's Labyrinth. Let's go.
That felt very Cronenbergian to me when I think about like Videodrome.
Del Toro.
Or Del Toro. I think about Cronenberg. I think about like where body and like mechanics meet, like the meeting of metal and flesh. So I was like, I'm on board for this.
Yeah, Del Toro for me is maybe like spirit and flesh. So, somewhat of a similarity. Maybe a future episode where we do some Del Toro and Cronenberg.
There you go.
Creature features.
Yeah. One that like I feel like the words matter more than the rating for me, and just sort of like trying to tease it out. The rating's really just a reflection of like how much I got out of it this time, but like it could be a 5 next time. Like, that's where I feel like the quantification kind of is irrelevant, and the words and the ideas are far more relevant, as they are almost any time. But
specifically rich with this one. Like, I think that if there was ever today a double screening feature that I wanted to recommend to someone today, it would be Under the Skin and Holy Motors. Like, I think that you could get something so visually and emotionally rich from interacting with these two films back to back, and how opposite but similar they will be to one another. Like, there's just something profound about their interactions, to me, in my head at least.
Love it. It's like one of my favorite exercises is just, imagined double features.
Yeah,
I would happily participate.
Especially for someone who like had never seen either of these before, like just how cool it would be to be them.
What would be first up in the bill?
You got to go with Under the Skin first.
That's
you just got to start with ScarJo. Be like, why are we on a highway? Why is it dark? Are we in an underground mall? What is happening? Oh God, fire!
Whoa! And you got them.
Yeah,
I like it. I think it's a 2 thumbs up.
I think it's 4 thumbs
from
up.
drinking the movies. There you go.
4 thumbs. 2 people. 4 thumbs. I guess finally. If you had to get married to a chimpanzee, would it be that chimpanzee?
I think it's a pretty promising candidate.
Pretty promising. She's a babe, dude.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Smoking.
Run! Go!
Chopper!
We have to go.
I'm coming with you.
That was brilliant.
You're the best and we love you!
That exit makes as much sense as that film.
Really hope people jump in there.
What? Chimpanzees?
What?
That's exactly how I felt.